Hi, my name is Miranda with the REI Co-op, and this video will cover the basics of cooking at camp. So this will include the camp cookware and flatware, some tips for grocery shopping and meal prep, as well as the two main techniques that you will use to cook at camp, and then just some tips on how to safely store your food and clean up after a meal. So the first thing that we're going to cover is your camp cookware and your flatware. If you're just going camping for the first time, it's completely fine to just bring your own cookware from home. Just don't bring your really nice stuff because things are more likely to get damaged when you're outside, even if you're being really careful. If you're cooking over a fire, stuff is gonna stain, you're gonna get dirt on it. So just leave the nice stuff at home, and that also goes for your flatware. Don't bring anything that might break because again, the likelihood of it breaking is just a lot more likely outside. If you're camping more often, you might want to consider getting specific flatware and cookware for your camping trips. When you're buying your utensils and your plates and bowls, there's really three different materials that you will find, and that is melamine and plastic, enamelware, and stainless steel. So plastic or melamine is probably one of the more popular options that you'll find for camping. The plus side of plastic is that it's very lightweight, it's really durable, and this is a great option for kids. Same thing with melamine. Again, these are just really durable and easy to clean, and they come in fun colors. If you don't want to use plastic for whatever reason, you can always look at enamelware or stainless steel. So enamelware is kind of like the retro classic campware that you might think of, and you can find this in a lot of different places now in a bunch of different colors. The downside of enamelware is that you can have chipping happen over time, but again, we're talking about after years of use, especially if they are well cared for. Last, you have stainless steel, which is my personal favorite. So the great thing about stainless steel is that it's super lightweight, it's easy to clean, and it will nest really small. And we do want to prioritize our space that our cookware takes up. Even though we're camping, it's still important to think about fitting everything into your car. The downside of stainless steel is that you can bend it out of shape, and the scraping noise that you'll get if you're using a stainless steel or titanium utensil can really be a deal breaker for some people. So now that you have chosen your utensils and flatware, it's time to talk about your cookware. There's two big categories of cookware that you will find for camping, and that is cast iron and coated aluminum or non-stick cookware. If you cook with cast iron at home, you might be someone who just really loves that technique and that method. You certainly get specific results from cooking with cast iron, and there are entire cookbooks that are written around cast iron pots and pans. If you're cooking over a fire, cast iron is really the best option, and it's gonna give you a lot of opportunities to cook unique dishes at camp. If you wanna go with the coated aluminum or the non-stick cookware, the great thing about this is that it all nests together really small. Oftentimes you get dual purpose out of a lid that can then become a pan or a pot that collapses down. And these are also super easy to clean up. The downside of these is that they really can't be used over a fire, or really shouldn't be used over a fire. So if that's your method of cooking, definitely go with cast iron. Let's talk through grocery shopping and meal planning for your camping trip. First thing that I want to note on this, and probably the most important, is that when you go camping, you should plan to eat foods that you normally eat. Camping is not the time to test out a new diet or try and cut calories or introduce new recipes and foods that your body's unfamiliar with. Essentially, we just want you and your body to be as comfortable in a potentially uncomfortable environment as possible, so that means eating stuff that you are used to. It also means it's probably not the time to only eat s'mores and hot dogs unless that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. So I would recommend doing some meal planning before you go grocery shopping. I like to put my meals into my phone and then count how many calories I'll be getting just to make sure that I'm gonna be getting enough for the day. That's the other thing with camping. You're probably gonna be more active on a camping trip than you are on a day-to-day basis, so you do need to account for a little bit more caloric intake than usual. What I like to do is write my meals down on my phone and then make a grocery list before I head to the store. So if you're someone who really likes to cook, you might want to plan to cook every single meal, but if you're someone who's probably going to be out during the day on a hike or biking or whatever, I would recommend doing something simple like maybe having oatmeal for breakfast and then sandwiches or wraps for lunch, and really saving dinner time to be your big cooking at camp experience. While you're meal planning, make sure that you're accounting for how much space you have in your cooler for perishable goods and then in your car for dry goods. That way you don't run out of space in your cooler and have things go bad. When you're packing your cooler, think about putting the foods for later in the trip towards the bottom of your cooler, and then the stuff that you'll go through first towards the top, so you don't have to dig through and potentially let cold air out. I tend to err on the side of having more dry goods if possible, so this may mean dehydrating food if that's something that you want to do. I love my dehydrator for dehydrating herbs as well as fresh vegetables or lentils, and this makes it really easy to cook this stuff up at camp, and it helps to save valuable space in my cooler. If you've never used a dehydrator before and that's something that you are interested in trying, we have an article below that you can check out, and it is definitely something that I would recommend. Great, so you've planned your meals, you know what you're going to eat, and now it is time to prep for the trip. While you totally can just put everything into your cooler and deal with all the preparation when you get to camp, it might be easier to do a little bit of pre-trip preparation, and this might include chopping up vegetables or setting aside portion sizes. I like to do this in these stasher bags. You can chop up all your vegetables in here or set aside portions, and this just makes it really easy to grab something and start cooking right away instead of worrying about the whole process of chopping and prepping and then cleaning up when you're done. Last tip for prepping for camp cooking is to bring a reusable bag like this one. So I always bring some reusable bags with me because inevitably there is something that I forgot to get before I got to my campsite. So having a bag like this that makes it easy to run to the closest grocery store is really helpful. Plus this gives me a good spot to store my dry goods or to store different meals. And just in general, having a reusable bag has been a really helpful tool for me in my camp cook kit. So now that you are at camp, it is time to cook your food. There are two main methods of cooking at camp, and those are a stove like this one or over a campfire. The benefit of a camp stove is that this is going to be the most similar experience to what you have at home, especially if you have a 2-burner stove like this guy I have in front of me. So 2-burner stoves are the most common types of camp stoves that you will find, but really camping and backpacking stoves run the gamut in terms of size, cost, and weight, so you really have infinite options on what you choose for a stove. If you're using a 2-burner stove, you'll have these dials on the front that control the flame, and then you might have a igniter button or light it with a match, and then it'll connect up to its fuel source, which in this case is propane. The plus sides of stoves, again, are really just that you're basically cooking the same way that you would at home, but you do have to bring fuel with you and probably bring some extra fuel, and they do require some care and maintenance to last you as long as they should. The second method for cooking at camp is over a campfire. If this is what you want to do, then the first step is to check the rules and regulations at your campsite to make sure that having a fire is even allowed. Even after this, you might want to consider having a backup option for cooking just in case wood is not readily available or in case you get a flash rainstorm that puts out your chances of having a fire. But once you've decided to cook over a fire, there are a couple of tips that you should be aware of. The first thing is that you'll need to plan ahead and really prepare to start your fire long before it's time to cook, because the best way to cook over a fire is over coals. That means that you need to give your fire enough time to burn down 2 coals, because that's really going to give you the best method for cooking. You have a few different options for cookware over a fire. The first one is Dutch oven, cast iron pots like this one, or just cast iron pans. These are really great if you're in it for the novelty of cooking over a fire, and there are some recipes that can really only be made in a Dutch oven over a fire. But then you also have foil packets, which work really well for cooking vegetables, and then roller roasters or kebabs for roasting things. One of the great things about cooking over a fire is that there can be minimal cleanup. So if what you want to do is just enjoy the experience sitting around the fire, roasting vegetables or meats or whatever, then cooking over a fire can be really fun. Definitely this is an option that is more of a novelty, and it is definitely going to extend your cooking experience. So if that's what you want to do, cooking over a campfire, then make sure that you really know the best way to do that and also how to put your fire out when you are done. For this, I'd recommend referring back to our How to Have a Campfire video, which we will link in the description below. So you've cooked your food and you've eaten your food, and now it is time to clean up. Cleaning up after cooking is not only important to keep a tidy campsite, but it's also important to minimize the smells and leftover food that we leave out for animals. Having this kind of impact on animals where they become reliant on human resources for food is just a bad leave no trace practice. And so refer back to your leave no trace principles if you have any questions about this. There are a couple methods for cleaning your dishes, and one is to get a collapsible sink like the ones I have in front of me. So this is a smaller sized collapsible sink, and this is a medium sized collapsible sink. These are great because they pack really small and they hold a lot of water. If this is how you are washing your dishes, then you can just put all your soapy water in your dishes in here and wash them that way. Another popular method for washing dishes is to use 3 separate bins, and in these bins you'll have essentially 3 stations for cleaning your dishes. The first one will have soapy water, and then you will have a rinse station, and then the third bin will have a diluted sanitizer, something to sterilize your dishes. This is especially popular if you are camping with groups, especially groups of kids, because everyone can be in charge of cleaning their own dishes. As far as soap goes, you'll want to have a concentrated biodegradable soap like this one here. And then I like to bring a few different methods for cleaning my dishes. So I have a rag for wiping them, a little scrubby sponge for scrubbing my dishes, and then a scraper for getting off the really caked on pieces of food. After you have washed your dishes, you are going to have dirty water or gray water that you have to properly dispose of. It's possible that your campsite has a designated area for washing your dishes and disposing of your gray water, so abide by those regulations. But if there isn't a designated place to dispose of gray water, then you'll want to spread that gray water on the ground. Do this far away from your campsite and everyone else's campsites, and you'll want to spray it instead of just dumping it out. The reason for this is that by spreading the water on the ground, we limit the concentrated area of impact that we have, because this can be an attractant for animals, as the gray water is likely to still have some sort of smell. So now that you've washed your dishes, it's time to pack up all your cook and campware as well as your leftover food. And to do this, you'll need to put your food in some sort of animal-proof container. It's a safe bet to assume that most places are going to allow you to keep your food in a locked car, but if you are in a campsite where there is a bear locker, you need to use the bear locker. Bears are smart, and they have learned to get into people's cars in some areas, so if you're provided a bear locker, please use it. You can also use a bear canister, like this one that I have here, but again, in most areas, storing food and stoves and cookware in a locked car is going to be the best bet. Hopefully you now know everything you need to about the basics of camp cooking. Remember that this video is the 4th in the REI Co-op class Intro to Camping, and our next video are on camp magic moments. There's a link below for some resources as well as articles and printable recipes that you can check out, as well as the links to other videos in this series. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our content.